Kia ora and welcome to Pitopito Kōrero Metro News, a show brought to you by the students of the New Zealand Broadcasting School. On today's episode, we take a look into how a generation skipped the local elections, why university staff are sounding the alarm, and it's time to put on your togs as summer is around the corner. Or is it? With local elections over around the country, many are still concerned about the youth turnout, with some saying councils need to do more to engage young people within the election process. McKenzie Jennings has the story.
The Christchurch City Bus Exchange. A busy place shared by many, but in particular some of its most frequent visitors, young people. This is an example of a council-run facility that affects many of our youth, yet when it comes to having their say in the local elections, many aren't taking part.
Have you guys voted?
No.
Why haven't you voted?
Not interested.
Yeah.
I'm from the UK, so it's not a local matter for me. I'm part Kiwi, but it's more that everyone's opinion matters, and so everyone should be heard.
When it comes to youth turnout and they'd be, oh, young people don't vote, young people don't want to vote. Well, actually, young people do want to vote, but it's not actually something that's centre of mind.
Councillor Jake McClellan told Metro News that in this year's local election, out of the 18 to 22 age group, approximately only 23% voted. The 22 to 27-year-old age group is even lower, at roughly 18%. But should council be taking more action to engage our youth?
The Christchurch City Council has been really shocking in its approach to this election, especially trying to engage new demographics like young people.
We probably don't do a very good job of communicating the values that young people are interested in.
Some argue voting should be made more accessible.
There aren't any polling stations open after 5 o'clock, for example. Anywhere in the city they aren't open in the weekends. There are places in Wellington that have voting bins in every countdown. There's a real lack of voting accessibility.
It's easy to grab a ballot out of a letterbox that doesn't belong to you and tick one box, but obviously with online voting comes the potential to tick thousands of boxes. So it's really the scale of fraud, and that's something we need to have absolute surety of before we can introduce online voting.
A big push for change as another local election passes by. McKenzie Jennings, Pitopito Kōrero, Metro News.
Overworked and underpaid. The latest profession to warn of an impending staffing crisis says an already struggling sector has not been adequately supported following COVID lockdowns, and its current and prospective students who may ultimately pay the price. I went along to the University of Canterbury to find out more. University students may be under the pump ahead of this year's exam period, but it's their teachers who appear to be feeling the pressure.
There's physical burnout, and there's intellectual burnout, and there's just emotional burnout.
Hundreds of Canterbury University staff joined last week's nationwide strike, the first in 20 years.
They have consistently received wage increases not in line with inflation, and they are unhappy. They've taken the workload through COVID, and they value their institution, but the institution is not valuing them.
And with online learning becoming a permanent addition to the workload, those in the sector say burnout is at an all-time high.
We're here, and with the senior leadership teams of some of the universities pushing and saying, well, you've got to stay where you're at, you've got to keep doing that amount of work, but in the next 3 years you're going to be making less and less and less.
Canterbury University's bargaining team says they believe talks have been constructive, and they are one of the few universities not docking pay following industrial action. They're due to meet with the unions this week. In the meantime, the university students are standing by their tutors.
We believe it's the perspective of the students that they want to recognise that lecturers helped get us through the pandemic and have dealt with so much.
Students wouldn't be here if they didn't have the lecturers and the staff to support them.
When they're happy and they're well provided for, that means that they can support us too.
As some universities go back to the drawing board, those students standing in solidarity continue to bear the brunt of staff stress.
Kindness and generosity and creativity are key to being educators, and those are the things that are lost first.
With those essentials lost, it's feared staff, then ultimately students, won't be far behind.
The reputation of New Zealand's universities in terms of our ability to attract highly qualified people is at risk right now.
Staff across Lincoln University are set to strike again tomorrow, but while UC workers await a verdict from today's negotiations, it's back to business as usual.
Kia ora!
For now.
That was pretty
Emily
good.
Ansell, Pitopito, Kōrero, Metro News. Next time you visit your local takeaway shop, you might notice your food being packed a little differently. The government is phasing out 6 single-use plastic items in the hopes of reducing waste, combating the nearly 800 kgs of rubbish we each throw out every year. Our reporter Cameron Joe went to find out what that means for us.
Whilst the food is being served hot at the kebab house, it's also being served in an eco-friendly way. Singh has never used plastic packaging over the 1.5 years he has owned his business.
I'm not using any plastic one because I know plastic is not good for me or for yourself as well. So I'm just trying to be a part of a little bit eco-friendly things. So hopefully it will continue.
And many other businesses will have to follow in his footsteps following government's announcement last week, banning plastic cotton buds and stirrers alongside PVC and polystyrene food packaging.
It's all a part of a single-use plastic ban, which saw non-recyclable plastic bags banned in 2019. And next year, the same will happen for non-recyclable utensils and produce packaging.
This is, I think, really encouraging progress for New Zealand. We still have a lot of work to do. It's not going to solve the whole plastic crisis, but it is very encouraging progress in the right direction.
But what actually is the plastic crisis?
We know now that the microplastics, which are produced when plastics break down in the environment and in landfills, are now present just about everywhere that we look for them. So taking this action on plastics and trying to reduce our production of them is a really necessary step.
While this change may not be as cost-effective for businesses, it's something consumers are here for.
So I think customers like biodegradable stuff as well. They are eco-friendly as well. So we have to go with the flow as well.
Customers are wanting, plastic-free alternatives, and we know for the environment that it's better to go that way. Then this is just really the direction that we have to start moving in.
A direction that will reduce this and encourage this, whilst we fight against one of our biggest environmental challenges. Cameron Joe, Pitopito Kōrero, Metro News.
Growing up can be hard for kids, but for some there's a bit more to navigate. Daniel Perese dives into the world of mixed-race people.
There are many ways to say mixed race, whether that be biracial, multiracial, polyethnic, etc. They all mean the same thing, as the dictionary describes them as someone who is made up of 2 or more races.
According to Statistics New Zealand, in 2013, 9.4% of Kiwis identified with more than one ethnicity, while in 2018, 11.4% identified, meaning that was a 2% increase within 5 years.
To understand more, I went to the University of Canterbury and talked to Dr. Annabelle Ahuriri Driscoll about why some mixed-race people feel left out.
Really related to how you're brought up, what you learn about what it means to be of a particular group or community, the language you speak, the norms, values, those sort of cultural elements.
During my time at UC, I decided to talk to some students who have lived experiences.
At some points it was difficult, just knowing that you have connections to different ethnicities, but then kind of growing up in one predominantly. And
I sometimes have identity crisis and stuff, especially when I'm hanging out with one side of the family and I turn into that side of myself, and then when I hang out with the other side, I'm a different person.
There is this sort of that me feeling like I'm stepping into a space that I don't belong because I don't look like I belong.
And many feel the same due to the phrase white passing, which means a person could be perceived as Pākehā, but in reality could be a person of colour.
I think we do have to be kind of honest about where we're at as well. I realise I'm very white passing, and I don't ever pretend that I'm not.
Many local celebrities like Riverdale star KJ Upper and Fair presenter Pippa Witzel are both European presenting, but the two are half Samoan, with KJ even gaining a chief title earlier this year. Just because someone may not have the physical attributes or knowledge does not mean they aren't part of the culture. A phrase used by many Aboriginal people goes, "No matter how much milk you add to your tea, it is still tea."
Daniel Perese, Pitopito Kōrero, Metro News.
Whaiake nei, coming up next. The cold may not have bothered Elsa, but it sure has made a lot of Cantabrians cover up mid-spring. And we take our binoculars out into the field with a local birdwatcher to discuss why some manu are becoming harder to find.
My name is Aaron Soma, from New Zealand originally. Now I'm working at the BBC in London, at BBC World, as a producer. So I went to broadcasting school, studied there, and then got my internship at TVNZ. Decided London was calling, so came here, started working at BBC World, and I've been here for about 3 or 4 months now. Absolutely just fell in love with this place. I mean, it's incredible. It's like a dream for any journalist. And to know that what you're producing is going out to tens of millions of people every hour, people watching it around the globe. It's incredible. There's that saying, the city that never sleeps, and this is one of those, of course. It's a huge, huge place. Great different little pockets of the city. It's amazing, it's always buzzing. At the moment I'm working night shifts, so that's overnight. So I start at about 10 PM and finish at 7 AM. You know, when I arrive, America is just going to sleep, but Asia is opening up, and then Europe starts to open up. So it feels like a bit of a dream actually to be working here. The course is great because it's very much in line with what the industry is doing, and that's really important because it gives you this kind of almost this worldly knowledge of what's actually happening. It can lead you to this big wide world. You can do whatever you want to do, put your mind to it, and get out there and see what's around.
Hoki mai anō, welcome back. Recently, Christchurch saw all 4 seasons in 1 week, from hot summer temperatures to winter snow. And whilst this can be entertaining for the school holidays, McKenzie Jennings explores the greater concern that comes with such extreme weather patterns.
Snowy tables and wet icy seats.
I'm just cleaning the snow on the floor, so there's no customer will slip on that.
An unexpected frosty start to the morning for the sign of the Kiwi Cafe in the Port Hills.
When I got in, we were super lucky. We had all the tables, had about an inch worth of snow on it.
And a great source of amusement for their customers.
We threw around snowballs at each other, and he hit me in the face and I hit them in the foot.
Also, we helped clean up the snow on the benches.
Yeah, that was satisfying.
It's such a treat to have something like this happen in the middle of the school holidays when we're scratching around looking for something exciting to do.
On Wednesday last week, across Canterbury, Jack Frost made his mark, with car bumpers piled with ice and snowy footprints across pathways. This was some of the snowy sights from the city's Margaret Mayhew playground. The Port Hill's beautiful views attracted many.
As you can tell by the busyness of this spot, snow can be great entertainment for the kids during the school holidays. However, should we be concerned about how late the snow is arriving?
It makes you wonder what's happening to the climate.
It is worrying me for summer. I want a nice warm summer, not a cold summer.
This October, getting that snow down to sea level in Christchurch is a little bit unusual, but looking at as a wee proxy for seeing just how cold the air was, it didn't look like it was one of the top 5 coldest October temperatures that we've had.
Looking forward, experts say we can expect more bipolar weather.
There will be times where we will see whether it's extremely hot days, whether it's extremely wet days or wet months.
At least some are enjoying the colder temperatures because there may be much more to come. McKenzie Jennings, Pitopito Kōrero, Metro News.
Whether it's the Gothic architecture or the century-old homes, our city has a lot of history. The council is putting on the annual Christchurch Heritage Festival this month, opening doors to many of Ōtautahi's most famous landmarks. And as Cameron Joe finds out, it's already off to a great start.
Ōtautahi, famous for its gorgeous gardens and timeless trams. This month, Council is celebrating our past with this year's Christchurch Heritage Festival.
It's an annual program of heritage events, which are community-led events, which is coordinated and promoted by the Christchurch City Council.
The festival has been allowing the public to explore the city's roots for 25 years, but this year's theme is all about our stories.
So we thought we'd focus on the milestones and moments in the heritage of all the communities of Christchurch and give groups that are working in the city the opportunity to share those stories. There's lots of tours of heritage buildings, so buildings that are open to the public during the festival that might not normally be open, like parts of the Arts Centre.
The festival began on Friday and will run for just over 2 weeks, coming to an end on Labour Day. With over 70 events during this time, the first one is taking place just behind me in the Christchurch Botanic Gardens.
So today the Canterbury Horticultural Society is featuring the Spring Flower Show. We have the Daffodil Championship, we have 6 heritage floral art displays from local garden clubs.
They are celebrating a significant milestone.
So the Canterbury Horticultural Society formed 160 years ago. We were launching all our celebrations last year, but COVID sort of stole that limelight from us. So we're really thrilled to be able to finally doing all our celebration activities now.
And that's exactly what the festival is all about.
There's a lot of community groups and organisations in the district who work all year on heritage projects, so it makes the work that they do more visible in one go. If you want to see the full program of events, then if you go onto the council website, then the Heritage Festival program is up at the moment.
A range of events that are bringing our community together through the treasures of our past. Cameron Joe, Pitopito Kōrero, Metro News.
Birds may not be flying onto your radar, but for some they are enough to stop and stare at. However, in Canterbury, many of these feathery friends are becoming harder to find. Our reporter Jordan Dunn met up with a local bird expert to find out why.
Okay, my name's Steve Atwood and I am a professional guided bird watching tour operator. I've been doing amateur photography out here for most of my life, so 60 odd years, but as a professional tour operator for the last 2 years. You wouldn't be a bird watching guide if you weren't passionate about birds, and being able to share that passion is the best part about it. The fact that you get paid for it is almost incidental.
Yeah, this was a vast freshwater wetland. Now it's one of the most polluted lakes in New Zealand. But about 80,000 birds at any one time live on this lake, and there's about 125 species been recorded on it. So it is still a wetland of international importance and still one of the finest birding places in New Zealand. Oddly, it doesn't impact on the birds too much.
I was only 7 and I begged my parents for a camera for my birthday present. And that year my mum took us to Stewart Island for a holiday. Mum and Dad love tramping and fishing, so we've always been an outdoor family. And I just got absolutely fascinated by birds.
So that's highly unusual behaviour for a yellowhammer to let you get that close. He is definitely on guard duty.
Probably the most interesting bird that people saw today, and a lot of people hadn't seen them ever before, was the wrybill.
But they are the quintessential braided river bird. You can see that that bill has evolved to feed under the stones of braided rivers because the stones are curved, so insect larvae in the gaps underneath. So that's why the bill is bent to the side. They're the colour of the greywacke on their backs.
I say 75% of the photo is before you even pick up your camera, and that's understanding birds, learning everything you can about where they live, their types of behaviour, what they eat, where they go in their seasonal migrations. And if you learn all of that, then when you pick up the camera you're going to have a lot more success.
And then I adjust the ISO so that I'm still getting the right amount of shutter speed that I want, which is never less than 500ths of a second, and for flying birds I try and aim for 1,000th of a second or more.
There's challenges that you can get. You're like, how many bird species can you see in a year? What's your life list like? How many endangered birds can you pick up in a year? Have you got a good shot of it, of them doing their mating display? So there's always these changes, and you learn so much about the environment when you study birds. So you then start a greater appreciation of where they live as well, not just the birds themselves. From a Māori point of view, from Ngāi point of view, this lake was a huge mahinga kai area. Yep. Food gathering, especially for eels, but also for flounder and the other birds that breed and nest here. The plants, wetlands were a pharmacy and a grocery, you know. In the time that I've been photographing birds at Lake Ellesmere, it's gone from being almost seen as a place, a rubbish dump almost, and having not much value, to suddenly understanding of how critically important wetlands are to us. And there's so few wetlands left in New Zealand. And then people suddenly realising that instead of just saying, oh, there's nothing but ducks and geese and a few gulls out there, realising that it supports an incredible number of birds. If you could wave a magic wand, you'd take away all of the farming and restore all of the health of the aquifers, but you can't do that. Now we've got a huge job on our hands to try and reverse that, and we may never be able to succeed, but people are now at least trying.
That's all for Pitopito Kōrero Metro News. I'm Emily Ansell. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Ka kite anō.
Okay, that's a wrap.
Amazing!